It is Thursday, January 27th. This is the Christian Commute. I am your host, Seth, and you're riding home with me from the racetrack in Calhoun. Because I went to lunch again at the taco house in Calhoun. And now I'm going to finish my work day from home. I need to go home at lunch because I have a basketball game to coach at 6. And I don't want to be rushing home in the afternoon. So I'm going to keep some weird hours. I'm going to go home, I'm going to work, I'm going to leave for the basketball game, I'm going to come back and work. Speaking of working, you'll notice there was no Thursday show and there was no Friday show last week. Here's what happened. Thursday, it was, we need all this budget stuff right now. I was like, all right then, I'm going to work from home. And then Friday, I was going to come to work. I was going to sit in my nice, warm, cozy office because my office is cozy. I got a blanket and a heater in there. And I was going to play ping pong with my friends in the afternoon. It was going to be a wonderful day at the office. And the VP called me on Thursday and said, I need you to set up a 9 o'clock meeting with me and you and all these muckety mucks. I was like, all right then. I'm not going to be there at 9. I'm going to work from home. I mean, I might have been there at 9, but I don't want to set a meeting up at 9 and then be late, 9:05. So I was like, all right then, I'm going to work from home. And I did. So here I am back at work. Well, not anymore. I left. But here I am on the way home on the Christian Commute, an abridged version because I'm coming from Calhoun, the gas station right by the interstate. In fact, I'm already on the interstate. Let's get right to it. Today's show title is Mike Winger, Sean Boltz, and the Charismatic Forest. Mike Winger, Sean Boltz, and the Charismatic Forest. I have a question in the inbox about carrying guns at church. And as always, we have the Bible chapter review. And this is if we get there type stuff. We'll do the Bible for sure. Hopefully we'll get to the Sean Boltz thing. I may make guns the entire episode. I don't know. We'll see. Because I'm coming from Calhoun. I'm coming from a shorter distance. And don't forget to donate to the Y Project, ycrosspoint.com, yrockbridge.com, yelevation.com, ynorthpoint.org. We want to expose the seeker-sensitive Ayatollah of rock and roll, seeker-sensitive goat church in the Purple Haze, pastored by Pastor Electric Blue, in whatever town near you. Don't forget to give to the Y Project. Now let's get to it. Luke chapter 11, verses 17 through 23. When we last left off, Jesus had cast out demons. And some people were accusing Jesus of casting out demons by the power of the devil. And some people were demanding a sign. So they were not satisfied with what Jesus was doing. They wanted more, or they were saying what he was doing was in some way counterfeit. The demons were exorcised. There was no question about that. All right? So you have one group of people saying, well, I want a sign. Well, casting out demons is not enough for you. And some other people saying, well, he's casting out demons by the ruler of demons. So let's pick it up in verse 17. But first, I have to unzip my jacket. It was 12, 19. It was in the teens. It was very cold, as it gets here in Georgia this morning. And once a year, I have to break out my Polar Tech 300 jacket. A jacket so hot that my grandfather refused to wear it. We bought it for him as a Christmas present in the 90s, I think. And it was so he could go feed the dogs in the cold in the winter, and he wore it and he gave it back. He said it's too hot. And somehow I ended up with this, I think it's a Cabela's Zip Fleece Polar Tech 300 weight jacket. And it is the warmest jacket in the world. But you can only wear it twice a year. And today was one of those days. It was too hot in the car. So now I've set up the Bible chapter review. I've prepped it. And I've taken the hot jacket off. Now here we go. But Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, any kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and a house divided against itself falls. If Satan is divided against himself, how will his kingdom stand? For you say that I cast out demons by Beelzebul. And if I by Beelzebul cast out demons, then by whom do your sons cast them out? So they will be your judges. But if I cast out demons by the finger of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. When a strong man, fully armed, guards his own house, his possessions are undisturbed. But when someone stronger than he attacks and overpowers him, he takes away from him all his armor on which he had relied and distributes his plunder. He who is not with me is against me, and he who does not gather with me scatters. Now the text here says Jesus knew their thoughts. And this is reminiscent of other places in the Bible where people are sniping about Jesus or complaining, but not within earshot. I think in Mark, people are thinking, what is it in Mark? People say, well, who's he to cast out? Who is he to forgive sins? And they don't even say it out loud. And Jesus knows their hearts and says, I'll tell you who I am to forgive sins. And he makes this little argument. And you're like, oh, how did that guy know what we were thinking? So Jesus knows their thoughts. He knows what they're thinking against him. And he makes this argument. Can a house, or asks this question, which is an argument, can a house divided against itself stand? Why would Satan cast out his own guys? That doesn't make sense. And he goes further to say, if I'm casting out demons by the power of the devil, what power are your guys casting out? Because he's not the only one who's ever done an exorcism. So he's basically saying, I can accuse you of the same thing. So number one, it doesn't make sense for Satan to cast out demons because they're Satan's people, because that'd be a kingdom divided against itself. I guess Satan is not as clever as Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars, who's playing both sides. Number two, if I'm doing it by the devil, maybe y'all are doing it by the devil. What about that? But then he says this, if I'm doing it by the power of God, he says the finger of God. If I'm doing it by the finger of God. So imagine if God had a finger, which he doesn't. I mean, Jesus is God and he has a finger. But remember, God's spirit. So this is an anthropomorphic finger. Anthropomorphism. And the finger is pointing at the devils, or pointing away and say, go away devils, go away demons, out. And the finger is the power of the finger, like touch the guy and poke the demons out of him. All right? So it's the hand of God. It's via the hand of God that Jesus is doing this. So if I'm doing it by the finger of God, then what? Then the kingdom of God has come upon you. So I'm not doing it through the devil. It's definitely being done, and I'm not doing it through the devil because that would make no sense. If I'm doing it by the finger of God, then the kingdom of God's come upon you. And then now you're doubting the kingdom of God. Those of you who have a problem with this, those of you who want more, the kingdom of God's not enough for you. You're rejecting the kingdom of God. And Jesus says, I'm gathering. And if you're not with me, you're scattering, and therefore you're against the kingdom of God. And he starts talking about if a strong man guards his house, nobody's going to come take his stuff. So I assume he has valuables inside. So you imagine this armored guy. Don't imagine him in Middle Ages armor. They didn't have that then. Imagine him back in the day, what he would have had. They had armor back then, but not like they had King Arthur times. I don't think King Arthur's not real, is he? Here's this armored guy. He's protecting his house. Nobody's going to get into the strong man's house. But if somebody stronger comes along, he can overpower that guy and take his stuff. So I want you to think about this, okay? Imagine the devil is the guy guarding the house. The devil's pretty strong. The demons have possessed people. It's the kingdom of the devil, and they've taken that guy's body as theirs. And Jesus comes along and casts them out. Jesus is the stronger guy. The devil looks strong, just like the guy armored guarding his house. Nobody's messing with his stuff. But when the stronger comes along, he can beat that guy. So imagine yourself, you're just some dude. Your body is yours. But demons are strong and they're going to come take you over. But then Jesus is even stronger than that, and he can get rid of the demons. He can oust them. The kingdom of God is upon you. And with that we'll end the Bible chapter review. Let's go to the question. This question comes from John in Rome. And basically the question is, should church members be armed? And he's asking in light of a very recent situation, which was the leftist, anti-government, anti-ICE protesters invading City's church in Minneapolis. So there was a church in Minneapolis called City's Church. It's a Southern Baptist church. And one of the guys who was a member there, maybe one of the elders, supposedly worked for ICE. And all these leftists out there are trying to dox everybody and intimidate everybody who works for ICE. Because I guess they want to have a bunch of immigrants defrauding the government in Minnesota. I don't understand what their motivation is. But they basically came and interrupted the church service. Not one unhinged dude, but a whole group of people. And there's been plenty of incidents in the news in history of one unhinged dude coming into a church and attacking people and shooting it. But this was a whole group of people. And some of those people may be facing jail time, because apparently you're not allowed to do that, according to something called the FACE Act. And they're terrifying children. I mean, it's real bad. So this is John's asking his question in light of recent events. Now, I want you to understand this. Most churches have a security team, whether formal or informal. And they're usually armed. I was at First Baptist a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I don't remember. And I was sitting out in the lobby, and some guys on the security team were saying, oh, the cop's not here today. They couldn't send the cop. And I was like, the cop's not here? What do we... there's no armed guard now? And the security guy just looks at me and picked up his shirt. He's got a gun. I was like, all right, we're straight. Chances are, especially, this is America, right? We got the Second Amendment. Chances are you're just around somebody with a gun. And the chances are super high that when you're at church, somebody else has a gun there with you, whether he's on the quote-unquote security team or not. But churches have security teams, and I think the thinking has been, this is to deal with an individual threat, the lone gunman type. And we've seen in the news how church security teams shoot the lone gunman. He comes in, he starts shooting at people, and the security guys gun him down, and they have training. You can actually get training for your church security team on how to recognize and handle threats. and how to safely handle the guns. But this is a whole nother thing. When like 30, 50 hostile people come in your church, what are you going to do? So John's question was, it was beyond, should church members be armed? And the answer is yes. And remember, if you want, where's the biblical evidence of this? Some of this is common sense. It's like saying, if your church meets in Alaska, should your church members have coats? Yes, because it's cold and you're going to get sick if you don't have a coat. You got to stay warm. Where does it say that in the Bible? Nowhere. All right. Where does it say in the Bible for your church to have a sprinkler system? It doesn't. But any building with a bunch of people is supposed to have a security or a sprinkler system. That's a law, depending on how many people are there sometimes. Where does it say that in the Bible? Nowhere. But it's just prudent. So if you can be in physical danger, you ought to have some weapons to defend yourself. And let's not forget, Jesus in the Bible talking about there's going to come a time when there's persecution, and the disciples say, here are 2 swords. He says, that's enough. So we see even Jesus saying, be prepared, and here are 2 swords. So yeah, make sure you have your 2 swords in church. But John's question went beyond that into, well, who should have the guns? Is there a security team? And then should just the security team have guns? So I can answer this in terms of my specific church. My specific church is not big enough to have a team of anything. There's churches that have security teams and parking lot teams and hospitality teams, and those individual teams are bigger than my church. So some of you might be in a small church like me, and you don't have a quote-unquote official security teams. Is there an unofficial security team? That's like, yeah, whoever has the guns. I don't typically carry my gun to church, but there's guns in my church. And then we ain't hiding them. You walk around, somebody just, somebody stretches and his shirt tail comes up, there's the gun. I mean, we ain't trying to hide guns. We had a guy a few weeks ago, if you remember my podcast, The Unwelcomed Guest, that was kind of about our situation with that person. And one of the women in the church had a gun in her purse, and when she saw him, she was ready to go for that gun. So we got men and women at my church who were armed. And I think that's the case at any church in any town, USA, right? Now, there's the idea that the women should be, or the men should be protecting the women and children. That's right. But there's nothing stopping women from having guns too. Listen, if you're a woman in church and you got a gun in your purse, like, well, I'm not going to carry the gun in my purse because I'm a woman and somebody should protect me. If some crazy gunman comes in and shoots your husband and shoots the security team, and you can't protect your child because you decided not to bring your gun in your purse because a man should do it, that's not good thinking. So, yes, church members should have guns, and everybody should. So, I'm not saying it's mandatory, like you're in sin if you're not carrying a gun. But there should be a few people in the room with guns. Definitely. Now here's the deal. Safety becomes an issue. Because here's another question that comes up. If I'm not on the security team, am I allowed to carry a gun or bring my gun if I'm not on the security team? Now the answer to that is, this is America. You can carry a gun anywhere you want, because the Constitution says so. Now I know that's my legal interpretation. Somebody says, you got a gun permit? Yeah, the Second Amendment's my gun permit. You got to carry a permit? Yeah, the Second Amendment, bro. But different states have different laws about concealed carry. Like anybody can just carry it. But But if you want to conceal it, you have to have a permit. So if you're in a state that has concealed carry and you have a concealed carry permit, why wouldn't you be allowed to carry it? Now, for whatever reason, some church we could be uncomfortable with that, but how would they know it's concealed? Here's the thing. If I'm a visitor at church and I have a concealed gun and somebody says, we don't allow people to have concealed guns here, I'm like, well then, what do you think? If you think I'm going to shoot people, why do you want me here as a guest? You know, I would caution this. Anybody and everybody doesn't need to be carrying guns around because guns are dangerous. And if you don't know how to handle a gun, you could just as easily shoot your friends and fellow church members and kids and stuff while you're trying to defend the church from a gunman. Now, I presume, but I don't know this because I don't have a concealed carry permit. Maybe some states make you take a gun training course before you get a permit. I'm going to tell you this. Driving a car requires a license, and you have to take a test to be able to do it. And you have to get a learner's permit and practice with an adult before you get your driver's license and can drive around by yourself. Because a car can be a very deadly and dangerous thing. So can a gun. And by the way, if you're one of these truck drivers who's driving around hazardous chemicals and flammable things and acid, you have to have a special permit for that because it's dangerous. So if you're going to carry a gun, you owe it to yourself and your neighbor to be trained on how to responsibly do that. Okay? I'm going to tell you this. I don't want some nincompoop or some cowboy type guy carrying guns around in church. He might shoot me when he's trying to shoot the guy. Because you understand, guns can miss, right? If you're aiming at somebody, you can miss them and hit somebody you don't intend to hit. So that's sort of my only hang up there, is I don't want just anybody having a gun. I want responsible people having guns. But John actually asked this question, like, what would your church say about it? It's kind of those things, I don't know, I never asked anybody, and I certainly don't want to give an official answer for my church, but it's the kind of thing, like, I don't think anybody would care. This is a conservative Baptist church in the South. Of course you can have a gun. I would say it's encouraged. So, that's gonna, you know what? I'm like 5 minutes from home. I can't do the Sean Bolt's charismatic thing justice. I'll give you a little preview. It's going to be old news by the time I get to it. But Sean Bolt's is a demonstrated fraud. And I'm not surprised because all of charismaticism is fraudulent. So that's going to be sort of the thesis. And we're going to be proving that out. But I want to talk about that at length. So today, thanks to me, why didn't I start when I left Dalton before I got to the taco house? Because it's my kids' fault. You can blame them. They took my phone charger last night, and when I went to bed, my phone charger plugs into my bed via a USB port in my bed frame because I have an adjustable bed and it has USB power. And I looked down and it was gone, and I was like, I'm too sleepy to get up and go find this. I said, I'll just charge my phone when I get to work. And I forgot. So my phone battery is low, so I was charging it on the way to lunch because I have to use it tonight for my AI camera. So you can blame my kids for the short show. Their fault. I blame my kids for life, quite frankly, and they deserve it. Thanks for listening to The Christian Commute. Lord willing, I'll be back with you again Thursday, maybe. Who knows? As always, God bless, and as always, remember, Christianity is not about getting saved. It's about being saved.